I started the recording. So, guys, thank you very much for being here with us. And we have Bill Grauer presenting for us from Microsoft, Jacksonville area. Bill, go ahead and do your introduction.
Yeah, thank you very much. I appreciate it. And I will start off. I appreciate you giving me the forum to present. I appreciate it very much. So I have a little slide deck, so I'll throw it up if you don't mind, because I have my introduction in there, so I'm no sense in doing this.
Yeah, go ahead.
Right,
do what you need to do. Appreciate it.
And get this shared out. All right, just let me know when you can see the main slide.
Is up and running.
All right. So today, title of the presentation is Administering PowerShell Scripts in the Enterprise. I'm obviously going to, maybe not obviously, I'm going to explain to you in detail what I mean by that, and I think what some of the challenges are around with dealing with PowerShell in an organization, in an enterprise. So we'll start off with introductions. Who am I? So my name is Bill Grauer, like Max has said. I've been with Microsoft since 1999 as a full-time employee. I worked for a year as a contractor, so I've really been around with the company since about 1998, so a good 14 years. I've seen a lot, done a lot, which is kind of nice. Got a lot of kind of a broad spectrum of skills. We were talking earlier. I've started off my career at Microsoft doing really OS level support. Windows ME was my first OS I was hired to support, and you can see I've stuck around, so I'm not terribly bright. But we've moved on. I've moved on since then, doing NT Performance and then Exchange Server, and now I'm in the developer role. So I do custom code support. So I help customers who are writing solutions, enterprise solutions with our technology using primarily C#, and I help them write that code, debug that code, implement that code, and find solutions to problems using a developer perspective. I've got heavily involved in PowerShell as a development language a couple years ago, and really a focus, probably about 80% of my development time now, doing PowerShell and helping customers automate their IT infrastructure using PowerShell. And so it's been pretty rewarding from that perspective. So it's something I really enjoy doing. I also teach PowerShell, so I'm pretty much on the road every week, different city, different town, delivering PowerShell workshops to our premier customers and trying to evangelize PowerShell and get people kind of jazzed up about this. All right, so that's a little bit about me. I'm down in up in St. Augustine, Florida. I guess depending on where you are in Florida. I am northeast corner of Florida. I've been here about six years. And then I have my contact information up here. You can get a hold of me of any one of these ways. Probably email is probably the simplest way. I honestly don't check Twitter all that often. I get so much email in a given day that I can't keep up with all the points of contact. So use either of the two emails is probably your best bet. Max, are the mics open? Okay, I'm going to assume no. I have no objection if you want to open it. I was asking if people's mics were open. I don't mind if you have questions. You want to interrupt me during the presentation.
Well, we're a small group. If you allow them to do that, then they're free to.
You know what? That's fine. Me talking for an hour to a black box in front of me, not so much fun. So interactive conversation is always probably better than and me just talking head. So. Yeah, feel free to interrupt me at any point, and I will stop.
Nice.
All right. So what are we going to talk about? All right. So there is some kind of I'm out. Like I said, I'm in front of customers daily, weekly, monthly, talking about PowerShell, writing PowerShell, helping customers implement PowerShell solutions. And there's been an overriding theme for the last. This isn't probably going back for the last year and a half. I've probably been having this, or probably been experiencing this conversation. And customers, they deal with PowerShell as very much like a VB scripting language, a batch scripting. We have a very decentralized approach to script development in an enterprise. So what do I mean by that? There's a bunch of bullets up here. I'm gonna talk pretty much high level I'm going to talk to all these bullet points at some point. You can read them on the screen, so I'm not going to address them individually. And somebody's pinging here. Is everybody okay? Somebody's audio is not working. Is it just Script Warrior who can't hear?
I think he just can't talk.
Oh, he can't talk. Okay, all right. So I will let Max or somebody else monitor the chat, and if there's a question, I won't be watching it. So somebody just please read it back to me. I would appreciate it.
Okay.
All right. So cool. All right. All right. So what are the challenges? We have this decentralized approach to script development, and what I mean by that is we have a bunch of guys in the AD team who want to automate some tasks they do daily, so they sit down and write some PowerShell scripts to do that. Generally, it's one or two or three folks in the team who actually have the passion and the desire to want to write PowerShell, and they're kind of tasked with going ahead and taking that, and they kind of take it upon themselves. There's no formal mechanism in place. There's no project manager that says, hey, I need you guys to go write these scripts to do X. It's usually these guys are writing this stuff, or these gals, excuse me, these folks are writing these scripts to do something to make their jobs easier. All right, and now you take this decentralized little pocket of development and you multiply it, or you spread it out across all the different teams in an organization. So the System Center guys are doing the same thing. The SQL guys, SQL folks are doing the same thing. So now you have all these little pockets of development, all these little groups of people that have scripts that are related to their little sphere of the world, and this potentially can present some problems or some challenges. And I say potentially, it doesn't even necessarily have to be, but generally it goes something like this, right? These little groups of folks have a very specific skill set. Like I said, the AD guys know how to script and know how to write code to get stuff from AD, but the System Center guys may have that need to do that. So what happens? They have to write that script themselves. They go out and get the stuff from AD, and you lose some an opportunity there because you have guys in the AD team that have either already done this or the experts at it, but we're not leveraging them. So we're either duplicating work or we're not taking advantage of the people who are the SMEs in that area to write that particular piece of code. All right. So it's this kind of idea that this kind of challenge is what I'm trying to solve, or what we're trying to solve. All right. And again, it's this little decentralized pockets of script development. Now this isn't, and then the last bullet I want to fail to mention is the last bullet on the slide is we also have to keep in mind security. You don't want Bucky, the pissed off NetAdmin, to go write some script to format your SQL servers when he's on his way out the door. All right, it's really easy. It's really possible to do with PowerShell because everybody trusts PowerShell scripts. It's whatever, just go ahead and run it. It's not a big deal. But running PowerShell scripts, running any executable on your production servers potentially could be a big deal. All right, so we want to keep that in mind. We really want to kind of isolate what scripts run on our production servers and make sure they come from a trusted source. And if they're not from a trusted source, at least know where they came from and who did it. All right. So we're going to keep that in mind as I'm talking about the solution, because that's kind of an important one for me. I want to make sure that we're running stuff that's well known and vetted. All right. So how are we gonna address these challenges? All right. So we're going to do this in a couple of different ways. So the first thing I'm going to show you is, and I should back up a second. These challenges that I've just laid out are not unique to PowerShell developers. This is a developer problem. All right. We had a conversation earlier that I said PowerShell is really was adopted and embraced by the developer community. And so I'm taking what I know from a developer point of view, seeing the same challenges that we face in traditional development shops, whether it be C#, C++, Perl, whatever. And we're going to take that and we're going to now put a PowerShell solution on it. All right. So the way we're going to do this is we're going to create a code repository for us to check our code in. When we write code, all of our code is going to go in one central repository instead of sitting on Jim's file server somewhere or the System Center team SharePoint server somewhere else. Okay, this is corporate IP. My company is paying me to do a job. I happen to be more efficient when I write PowerShell to do it. We want to want the company to benefit from that work that I've done. And so we're going to put it in a central repository so the entire enterprise can take care of it or reap the benefit thereof, okay? So to do that, the central repository we're going to use we're going to use Microsoft's TFS. It's Team Foundation. It was originally a Team Foundation server, if anybody's ever heard of TFS. It then had migrated into Team Foundation System because it was a collection of things that managed, we called it development lifecycle, so it wasn't just source control. And now it's Team Foundation Service. All right, so we're going to use TFS in the cloud. We're going to use TFS Azure, and we're going to use a cloud solution to store our IP. So this provides a way for to securely store our IP, and it also allows me to have an audit trail of who wrote what code, when it was written, and if I want to go back in history, if I want to go back to a previous time, and when I had a bug that was introduced with a new version of the script that's bringing down my production servers, I can roll back to the previous version really quickly, which is very nice. All right, so we're gonna show you that. It's free. All right, with some limitations, which I'll talk about. But we'll get started there, and we'll talk about what we can do next. And then the last two bullets of this, we're going to talk about. So code review. Currently, when we write PowerShell, or when you write PowerShell in your enterprise, if you want a code review, and when I say code review, I want to make sure my code is adhering to some corporate practices about how I'm going to write PowerShell. All right, I'll give you some examples of this in a few minutes when we get there, but currently your option to do a code review in PowerShell is to hand it to somebody and say, hey, can you look at this and tell me if I'm doing what I should be, if I'm writing this code as I should. I'm going to give you an automated solution because doing it manually is just not effective if you're talking about an enterprise. So I will show you an automated way to do this. And then as part of this code review, we're going to add some security to this. We're going to digitally sign our scripts, and we are going to make sure that all our production servers' execution policy is set to all signed. If you're not familiar with execution policies, really tells PowerShell what types of scripts I can execute. Out of the box, by default, when you install PowerShell, our execution policy is set to restricted. I can't run any PowerShell scripts. All right, it's my job or our job as administrators to ease up that restriction to the point that we are comfortable with. And some of the options we have are all signed, which means all my scripts that I execute on my servers have to be digitally signed, or remote signed, which is I guess probably our recommended least restrictive, which means anything I download from a remote source must be digitally signed, but anything I write internally we can execute. My fundamental problem with having on my production servers now is all I'm talking about is using a remote signed is we still have that problem of some disgruntled employee or potential problem. Right? This disgruntled employee wants to wreak some havoc on my infrastructure. It's pretty easy to do with PowerShell, as it is any other executed language. PowerShells happen to be pretty easy and accessible. So I want to help prevent my customers against that type of malicious attack. So I suggest all signed, and I'm going to show you, kind of what we're talking about here. All right. So
hey, Bill.
Yeah.
Did you say TFS was a free service?
So TFS Azure, TFS in the cloud is, and I'm going to show you that in a minute. And I said with some restrictions. All right.
Sure.
Which I'll talk about. But generally, for what I'm going to do, everything I'm going to show you is absolutely free. You can go back to your desk when you're done with this. Go sign up for this and start playing with yourself.
Okay, thanks.
So yeah, no problem. Okay, so to do this, there's some additional I'll call them dependencies that we're going to talk about and we're going to need. All right, we're going to talk about. I said we're taking a developer problem. All those challenges that I pointed out a couple slides ago. I said these were issues that any development shop faces. So I'm going to give you a developer solution. I'll address some upcoming stuff that we're working on that will maybe make you a little happier. So if you'll bear with me, I'll talk about it in a minute. But for today, all right, for right now, The dependencies, the stuff we're going to be using is, first off, we're going to use Visual Studio. I have 2010 up on the slide here. I'll explain this a little bit more in a minute. I'm using 2010 and not 2012. All right, so I'm not using the latest and greatest. I'm using one version earlier. It needs to be Ultimate, Premium, or Professional. These are the only 3 versions that we can interface currently with TFS. So Visual Studio Express, which is free, has no hooks. I have no ability to connect to TFS. That's never going to change. I don't think it's going to change. I should say never. So for today, we're going to talk about I need Visual Studio 2010, Ultimate, Premium, or Professional. All right, I have to install Service Pack 1 on that, and then the Visual Studio hosted TFS patch. So there's a patch that allows Visual Studio 2010 to know how to log into TFS Azure, because it's at the end of the day, it's a live ID login. Okay, it doesn't use domain credentials, which we'll address here in a minute. And then I'm going to leverage, from there, I'm going to leverage a nice feature of Visual Studio. Visual Studio is extensible. I can write functionality and add it to Visual Studio to suit my needs. Much like I can write, the PowerShell ISE is extensible. All right, I can do the same thing in the ISE, which I'll ask you to just keep in mind for a moment. So I want to extend Visual Studio's functionality, and we're going to use the Power GUI. This is the last bullet. I'm not a little out of order. This is the Power GUI Visual Studio extension off of Codeplex. And I'll put the slide back up at the end of the presentation if anybody misses this or didn't have time to take a picture of it yet. This Visual Studio extension is going to give me the ability to use PowerShell within Visual Studio. All right. PowerShell is not natively supported in Visual Studio. I don't want to get too much off on a side. Max and I and some of the other folks were talking earlier about Microsoft's vision for PowerShell was really, it was designed and intended for the system administrator to make your jobs easier. The developer community kind of hijacked this language from you. But Microsoft really wants to keep them distinct and separate. So I don't think we're ever going to see, or at least not in the near future, PowerShell support in Visual Studio from Microsoft, because I think they're really trying to keep those camps separate. Visual Studio is a developer product, PowerShell is a system administrator product. But Adam Driscoll is a gentleman from Dell, I believe. At least he used to be from Dell. He used to work for Dell. Wrote this extension so we could take advantage and we can leverage Visual Studio's tools for PowerShell. And it does that by using Power GUI. If you've never used Power GUI is a third-party IDE or ISE, right? Integrated Scripting Environment. It's free. I used to use it. I'll be for disclosure's sake. I was actually a big fan of it. I now use PowerShell 3 ISE primarily. I'm happier with it. Power GUI is pretty nice. If you've never played with it, never kicked the tires, I would absolutely suggest going to download it. If you're going to use the solution, you're going to have to, and take a look at it. The key with this solution is you'll notice in my parentheses, this is not the latest version. All right, Power GUI's most current version is 3.6. 3.6 does not work with Adam's plugin, nor do I think it's ever going to. So you just need to make sure you download version 3.2. All right. So with that, all right. So now I've kind of explained to you the challenges, what I wanted, how we want to approach addressing those challenges. And some of the dependencies I need. I'm just going to go demo the solution. All right. This is a little bit of a complex solution. The devil is really in the details with this. So I'm going to go ahead and we're going to walk through the solution, give you the big picture, and then we'll drill down into details and particulars. And hopefully it'll make a little more sense if you see what we're trying to get to. When you see the end result, hopefully the little pieces will make a little more sense. So let's get out here and let me fire up let me connect to some of my machines here. All right. Hopefully everybody can see my client. And a bunch of text here.
Looks good.
All right, cool. All right, so the first thing we want to talk about is using Team Foundation service. All right, like I said, it's a free service. It's code source control in the cloud. All right, So let's just go ahead and we'll take a look at this. We'll get signed up for this. All right. So the URL is tfs.visualstudio.com. As you can see, a nice big blurb up on the upper right-hand side says sign up for free. Signing up is really easy. All you need is a live ID. So if we'll click sign up for free, I'm actually not going to do this. I already have one, but I'm just going to show you what it looks like. In the URL, you can put anything. If you spell it right, you put anything you want in here. All right. If it's not taken, it's yours, and then your connection URL is going to be HTTPS, whatever, mycompany.visualstudio.com. All right. Like I said, this takes a few minutes, so I've kind of had a pre-created one, so I'll show you mine. All right. All right. Mine's going to look a little different, and I'm going to be, just for disclosure's sake, I created this a long time ago when it was still in beta. So my URL, instead of being visualstudio.com, is tfspreview.com, but it works the same way. Okay, it's at the end of the day, the back end is still the same. So my instance I created, I call PFE Automation. I'm a part of a virtual team at Microsoft that we do a lot of PowerShell development for customers, and I am the gatekeeper. I am the source control Nazi for my team. I stood up this PowerShell, or I stood up this Visual Studio, or TFS instance for my team, and I am the administrator of our team's TFS instance. So this is the one we created for our team. So we'll go ahead and get created, and this is kind of what you're going to see. All right, so we can create a new project. I've obviously created a couple of them. The two we're gonna mess around with today is PowerShell. All right, so it's all my PowerShell projects go in this thing, and then demo one is one we're really gonna use today. Creating a new project, pretty simple. Click the New Team Project button, give it a name. All right, doesn't care what it is. Again, spelling probably counts. Give it a description if you want. The process template, there's a couple of them you can choose for. At the end of the day, it probably doesn't matter which one you choose. I will point out where you might see some differences depending on what you pick here. But for what we're doing, you can probably pick whichever. I'm going to tell you I pick Agile because I know that terminology, but it really is not going to matter. So I wouldn't sweat it too much. And then leave the Team Foundation server as the version control. Your other option, if you've done anything with source control, is we now support Git, which is another online solution. Click Create Project. This does take a few minutes, so again, I'm not going to do it. When you create that project, I will assume I just created Demo 1. It likely will not show up here if you have a lot of projects, so I can go ahead and click the Browse All button. And see the list of all my projects and highlight. Just go ahead and click Demo 1 and navigate, and will take me to my project. For now, all I want to show you on this is how to add users, so you can give them access to this this project we've just created. It's going to be a little link down here that says Manage All Members. One of the nice things about using TFS Azure, it's all live ID driven. All right. And so if your members are going to use in TFS Azure, they have to have live ID. So we're not using domain credentials. All right. I'm not joined to any domain. I'm not adding my Microsoft domain credentials here. I have a live ID attached to this that handles my authentication. So I'll just click Manage All Members, and I've added. All right. So this is me. All right. And then I've got two fictitious users. These are the two domain users I have that I created live IDs for them. Fred and Barney, if just happen to be one of my demo accounts I've been using forever. So, and simply just click Add User, put in the live ID. You don't have to click OK. Just click Save Change. It'll add them, and we're good to go. All right. So it's pretty straightforward. We're going to drill more into this, but for now, this is really all I want to talk about as far as setting up TFS Azure. It's really easy. So once I have TFS Azure set up, I can now start. I can leverage it now with my PowerShell code. So let's start up Visual Studio. I said earlier there's some dependencies I have in Visual Studio. Like I said, it's 2010 Ultimate. It could be Ultimate, Premium, Professional, doesn't matter. I have SP1 installed, and I have the hosted TFS patch installed. There's one other thing I need to make sure I have installed, and that's the Power GUI Visual Studio extension from CodePlex, right? Adam's extension, so I know, or Visual Studio knows what in the world PowerShell is. I'm going to check to see if I have it installed. Like, quite honestly, I don't think I do, but I'm going to double check. I'm going to go to the Tools menu, and look at the Extension Manager, and in fact I do. So here's the Power GUI VSX. All right, this is Adam Driscoll's PowerShell. All right, here's his name, his PowerShell extension, so we know, or Visual Studio knows what a PowerShell project is. And then I have, this is my check-in that we'll talk about in a minute.
So do you need Power GUI itself installed or just the extension?
You do. No, that's a really good question. You absolutely need Power. You need Power GUI editor. You need version 3.2 installed. The latest is 3.6. This is what I was mentioning earlier, that you can't install the latest because it doesn't work with this extension. So you have to install 3.2, but I absolutely have it installed. It's yeah, right here.
Okay.
And again, at the end of this, I'll talk about what I think this project holds for the future and where we're going to go with this. I'm going to remove my check-in just for a second. I'm going to go ahead and uninstall that. Let's restart Visual Studio. Actually, I didn't want to do that. Let's close it. Let's close that real quick. I'm just going to show you what it looks like when you install the extensions. All right, both mine and Adam's look exactly the same. Their VSX extensions, they always look the same. So I'll show you mine, and you can just imagine we're going to do the Power GUI one. I have this file already saved off in a folder here. So here's Adam's Power GUI VSX. Here's mine. So if we just double-click this, I get this little blurb. It tells me what version of Visual Studio we're applying this to. If I have Visual Studio 2012, it would show both of them. Or if I had different versions of Visual Studio 2010, it'll show all of them. And I'll just click Install, and it'll tell me, hey, you were successful. Green check is good. All right? And then close. All right, so it's pretty simple to get installed. Not a whole lot of goo behind it, which makes this really, really easy to implement. All right, so let's go back to Visual Studio.
And as you go through, I assume you're going to let us know where to get that extension, those extensions at.
I'm going to let you know where to get one of them. Yeah. So one of them is one of them was on that slide, and I will go back. I'll put that slide back up and talk to it again. One of them you'll get off CodePlex. The other one I'm not sure yet. And again, at the end of this, I'll talk about that.
Okay.
So before I go any further, I'm going to paint you a what if. All right. I don't know how typical this is, but it happens enough that it's a concern, which is why we have solutions like this. So let's for the moment, we are in a traditional, or a currently traditional, I will call, enterprise doing script development. I have my PowerShell scripts up somewhere on some file share. So I'm just going to go ahead and start the ISE. I'm going to connect to a file that I have saved off on my Z drive. All right. And I am logged in. I don't know if you can see this up here. I'm logged in as Fred, all right, on my Windows 7 client. And I've got this script up here. All right. It's ridiculous, right? This is nothing, right? It's a nonsense script. This is for an example, all right? So I want to add some code to this. I'm going to add a new function to this code. So now I'm at my desk. It's Monday morning, and I'm a developer now. So let's just add a function. And I should probably spell this right. I'm just going to create a little function that's going to set my contact information. Where it's going to set it, I have no idea, nor do I care. I'm going to do something cool here. All right. So now I'm at work, and I'm doing a lot of stuff here. I'm writing some PowerShell. Well, Barney comes into work. I'm going to switch over to Barney now. All right. And Barney sparks up his Visual Studio. Actually, that's not what Barney wants to do. Barney wants to open up his ISE. Barney's not paying attention. All right, so Barney's going to open up that same file, and he doesn't have it saved, so let's go ahead and open that up. All right, so now Barney's going to create his function. All right, All right, so he's doing some other stuff here. All right, so Barney's hammering away. He's writing his function. All of a sudden he goes, oh, hey, you know what? I just noticed while I'm testing my script, we got a bug here. So I want to fix this bug. This is obviously this is crummy code. So let's go ahead. We're going to go ahead and fix this and say, okay, if whatever. All right, so we're going to fix this bug, and now I'm done. I'm gonna save my script here and go about my merry way. I'm going to flip over to Fred. Fred is done writing his code. He's going to save his script, and he's going to close this. End of the day, everybody's going to go home. So a week later, we come back over to Barney, and Barney's going to fire back up his ISE, and he's going to go work on that script again. Hopefully, everybody's now figured out what's going to happen. Barney opens this up, and now all his work is gone. All right, all his work is gone because Fred came back and saved his work over what was currently out there. All right, so now we have Fred's ground technical information, and we still have my bug. All right, so this is a fairly common, fairly typical scenario. I don't think it implements this way very often, but it's still something people have to be cognizant of when they have all their code stored out on file shares. You have this email storm. Hey, I'm working on this file, or you got to set the permissions, you got to set the attributes to read only, or you got to do all sorts of stuff to kind of prevent this kind of overwrite from happening. And then you have to communicate at some point around, hey, I fixed this bug, or hey, I found this bug, who should fix it? Okay? So you have this overhead that you have to address, and if you don't, stuff like this can happen. All right? So with that being said, all right, this is where we're going to start. We're going to solve this problem first, and then we'll move on. So let's go back over to Fred. Is me jumping around okay? Is everybody kind of following where I'm going?
So far, so good.
Yeah. Okay.
You're good.
All right. So I'm going to go back over to Fred. We're going to spark up. Cool. Thank you. We're going to spark up Visual Studio, and now I am going to create a Visual Studio project, or a PowerShell project in Visual Studio. So if I just come to File, New, Project, all right, I see I have a section under PowerShell under Installed Templates. All right, this is what Adam Driscoll's plugin gave me. All right, it lets Visual Studio know what a PowerShell template is. What is a PowerShell project? All right, so I'm going to highlight this. We'll call it whatever project. Project X, all right, who knows what it's going to do. For the moment, there is a little checkbox down here. It says add to source control. We're going to leave that clear for the moment. All right, I'm not going to check that just yet. I'm going to check this in the source control in a minute. I'm going to show you how to do it outside of this. All right, but for now, I'm just going to create a traditional project in Visual Studio. So I'll click OK. I get my Solution Explorer on the right-hand side here. So here's this script.ps1. I'll double-click this, and I get an editor. All right, this is another thing that Adam's plugin is doing. It's leveraging Power GUI's APIs to do some IntelliSense, to do some code editing. All right, so let's keep this simple for now. All right. I really just want to show you if you have syntax highlighting and IntelliSense and really all the kind of the bells and whistles in the PowerShell in the Power GUI UI now in Visual Studio. All right, so this is one of those other things that this plugin gives us. All right, I will mention this is not how I do development. I'll talk to you about that in a moment. I still don't do my development in Visual Studio, but I'm going to use this to do my check-in. I want to save this into TFS. All right, so I have this script. I know it says it's nothing, right? It's just a couple of comments, but I want to save it in source control. All right, I want to get it off of my local disk, and I want it to be saved in my central repository so everybody can contribute to it and access it. All right, everybody in my team. All right. So how we do this? Well, first thing we need to do is we need to come up here we need to connect to TFS first and foremost. We haven't connected to TFS. We set up an account, we created a project, but now I need to connect my Visual Studio to that TFS instance. All right. So I have a team menu up here at the top, and there's an option to just connect to Team Foundation Server. So this is where we're going to go. I'm going to remove this for just a second, so we can show you what this would look like naked. All right. So when we open this thing up for the first time, there's going to be nothing. All right. Click the server button, click add, and give it my URL. My URL was pfeautomation.tfspreview.com. You'll notice once I finish Visual Studio realizes it's a URL, so it grays out all this other stuff. I'll click OK. And we are connected. All right. So I can see down here at the bottom I'm connected with Fred. That F is Fred. I got lazy when I created these Outlook accounts, and when I filled out his first name, I just put F. So this is Fred. I can click this link and click sign out. Let's go ahead and sign out, so we can see when we do connect. We'll just get this will be the interface, right? So it's just prompting me for a live ID to log in with. All right, so I'll give him credentials, log in, and we're good. Now, I had mentioned earlier when we were looking at TFS Azure, when I was creating my project, I said I created demo 1, and I said we're also going to use PowerShell. These are 2 I created earlier, so I'm going to select which projects I want to connect to, and just simply click the connect button, click OK, and this will bring me up the Team Explorer view on the right-hand side. All right. So I double-click on Source Control, it'll bring up my Source Control Explorer, and it'll show me the projects I currently have, all right, in each one of these TFS projects. So in the TFS PowerShell project, I have there's a couple of things going on here. So let's look at demo first, because demo is nothing. I don't have anything in demo. All right. All you'll see at first is this build process template. We're not going to talk about it. We're not going to worry about these right now. Every project you create in TFS, whether it be TFS in the cloud or TFS on-premise, has these build process templates. All right. Beneath that, we can create other projects. All right. So I created one called demos. I've been using when I talk about this in the past. So I got a couple of PowerShell projects. So let's add the PowerShell project we just created. It's Project X, and I'm going to add it to my demo project here. All right. I'm going to add it to this guy. So we'll come back to Solution Explorer. We're going to highlight the solution, right-click, and choose the Add Solution to Source Control option. Click my link. It'll ask me where do you want to save it. I'm going to save it right here. We'll call it Project X, and then click OK. All right. So this is going to add my stuff to solution, source control, and you'll notice on the right-hand side, hopefully this is big enough, I got some plus signs to the left of my solution objects. All right. This is telling me, this is my visual cue, that these items have been newly added to source control, but they have not been checked in. Check-in is the mechanism to which we tell TFS that, hey, I want to take the copies of the stuff that I have on local disk, and I want you to store them in your repository. All right. Up until this point, this stuff is not saved. Okay, it's still local. So if I were to go on vacation, right, close Visual Studio, go on vacation, and my machine melts while I'm gone, I'm going to lose my work. All right. So it's important to check in and check in often. That's what saves the stuff to the repository. All right. So how do we check it in? Again, very simple. Right-click, choose check-in. I'm going to be presented with this this interface. All right. First thing it's going to ask me is for comments. I would highly suggest you always put a comment in. I'm going to do it. It takes a little bit of time for this demo, and I used to get lazy, but I think it's important enough that I shouldn't shortcut this. So we're going to add comments to this. So we'll go. So we'll say the initial project check-in. All right. Click check-in. I'll get some information back that, okay, now my project is checked in, and I'm good. So all that work that I have is now saved on disk. Okay. I am going to keep working. All right. So let's do function. Sorry, let's do this. Get. So service info. I'm making something up here. I'm hoping this is going to work out. Let's do get service. Whatever name. Bits. So I've got this work cooking here, and this looks pretty good to me. You'll notice over on the right-hand side now, on script1.ps1, I have a little red check. All right, this red check is telling me that this file is checked out to me. I currently have this thing checked out, and I'm working on it. And the red check just means that something's changed, so I need to check it in. Right? That something has changed is this function. This is no longer saved in TFS. All right, so again, same process applies. Right-click and click check in. But before I do that, let's come over to Barney. Let's spark up Barney. Let's connect him to TFS. I've obviously already got this set up, right? So we don't have to go through it again. Even tells me here B is signed in. All right, so let's go ahead and connect to Barney. Here's demo. Double click on source control. Here's Project X. Please take note that project. Where's Project X?
Under demo 1. Up.
Oh, I am in the wrong one. Here we go. Thank you. Project 1 is gray. Okay. He's grayed out, so if I click on this, it's not going to do anything. It's really technically not true. I'm going to double click. It's going to tell me I need to do something to fix this, which I'm going to. When I created this project, when I was logged in with Fred, I told you that that project was local to me. Okay. When I'm editing that code, it's on local disk, and it's only when I check it in that it's uploaded and stored in the cloud. The changes are stored in the cloud. Well, that works this way too. So for Barney, it's the same case, right? I have to have the copy of this thing local that I can work on. So I'm going to click on this not mapped link and tell it where I want my local folder to, where I want my local copy to be. So let's see if it'll let me copy it in Barney's source. Yes. All right. So I mapped it now to C Barney SRC. This is short for Barney source. All right. So I have a copy of this project now on my local disk. So if I come out here to see Barney source, here's Project X, and here's my script file. All right. So I can now open the solution. So I'm going to double click the SLN file. I'm going to get this lovely error, which this is a Power GUI extension error, and I don't know why I get it, and I haven't been able to fix it. So this is going to be a little bit of a snafu. You'll notice my syntax is not highlighted anymore. It's not going to prevent us from checking in, but we're going to lose all our IntelliSense and stuff like that. But really not a big deal for what we're doing. All right. So first thing you'll notice is that function that Fred wrote is not there. All right, because I didn't check this code in. All right. As far as TFS knows, this doesn't exist. This is still local. So now Barney's going to come over here, and I'm going to highlight my thing here. And let's just do get. All right. So Fred is going to write good code. Fred's going to put it in a function. Barney's going to get lazy, and he's just going to get service name bits. Let's just do get service. We'll keep it simple. We're going to do everything. All right. So Barney's going to check his code in. So I'm going to come over here on my project, right-click, check in. It's going to ask me if I want to save the files. Yes, I want to save them. Go ahead. I want to save it local. It's going to ask me for comment. I added get service. And I'm going to click check in. And we're good. So there's a couple of things that happened under the covers that I'm going to just talk about very high level, and we'll dig in later. I told you I wrote a check-in extension, a check-in plugin. All right, so if I come to Tools, Extension Manager, oh, I didn't install it. Never mind. We'll come back and install it in a minute. So I got to check this code in. Fred's going to come back. Let's get rid of that. All right, Fred's got his code here. I'm going to check this code in now, right? So what happened earlier when I did this in the ISE earlier, when I checked this in or when I copied this stuff, it overwrote Fred's work, or in this case would be Barney's work, all right? So I'm going to click check in, say yes, all right, and let's see, get, all right, so we added our get service info function. I'm going to check in. All right, and notice now I get a warning. It says, hey, no files were checked in because there's a conflict. All right, what we're trying to check in has changed, or the copy we have originally changed from when we opened this. So it doesn't overwrite it, right, which is what we want. It's going to ask me, hey, what do you want to do with this? All right, so I'm going to open up this conflict resolution manager. We'll figure this out. So we'll say, okay, and open this up. I'm going to say merge changes in the tool, and now I can see what Barney added and what I added and what I want to do. All right, so I don't want this. All right, I'm going to delete that. Click OK. It says, hey, all conflicts have been resolved. You want to save it? Yes, I do. And now I want to reload. It's going to prompt me, do you want to reload it? Yeah, come on. Close this. And now I have my bit with my function, and I don't have that stuff that Barney added because it's a duplicate. So at the end of the day, we still got rid of Barney's work. But we got rid of Barney's work because we needed to, not because it was an accident.
Okay, I've got a question.
Shoot.
Why is there still a red check mark on the script.ps1 file in the Script Explorer or Solution Explorer?
Ah, very good question. Because the conflict resolution manager doesn't automatically check the file in. All right, it's still local to my disk. I still have to check this in. So if I right-click on it now and say check in, notice my same comment is still there because my previous check-in failed. Right? If you remember how this process went, I tried to check in. It failed and said there was a conflict. It gave me the option to resolve that conflict and then brought me back to here. I still now have to initiate the check-in again. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Yep.
All right. So cool. So we're going to right-click, check in. Oops, that's not what I want to do. Hang on. Right-click, check in. I'm going to check in the file. And bang, we're done. All right. So now this file is saved.
Bill, I have a question.
Go ahead.
Bill?
Yeah, go ahead.
Does it do version control? So every time you check back in, it keeps the previous version so you can compare, because when you remove Bill work, Bill may get a little bit upset. He doesn't understand what happened.
Yeah, I'm building there. I'm going to show you that. So.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a couple of really nice things that I like about this solution. Before I move on to what you just described, I do want to show something I was trying to show in Barney's example earlier. I think we have tools extension manager. All right, so my PowerShell Checkin is doing a couple of things for us. All right, one of the things it's doing is it's taking anything that is successfully checked in, and I'll stress successfully. All right. We are publishing that to a public URL so anybody can go get it, because this is what we would consider this then good code, well-known good code. All right. So where does it publish that? So I'm publishing it on a I'm publishing on a share. Happens to be my Z drive again. I have it mapped to this. I'm going to call it the PowerShell directory. We got demos. Where did I put it? Demo. That's interesting. All right, I don't know where the one I just did. I don't know where Project X went, which is, again, you do a demo and some stuff can go wrong. This is one I did earlier. All right. So what happens is every time I check the file in, and every time I check the file in successfully, we copy it up to this this public share, so anybody can come get it. All right. And then every time I check it in, there's a new check-in number. All right. So I keep a history of all the check-ins, and then I have the latest. This is the latest one that was checked in. So I open up this file. All right. If I come and edit this file, not only do I save this file off, no, I don't want to upgrade. All right. I digitally sign it. All right. So this file is now digitally signed. All right. So I have a known good source. I check it in. It checks in successfully. Go save that file to my share and digitally sign it so I know it's from a trusted location. I know it's trusted because it came out of TFS. I know I can audit. I know I can figure out who wrote it and when. All right, pretty cool?
So your extension is saving it out and signing it.
My extension saves it out to that directory and signs it.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a function of the check-in extension that I wrote. That's not something in TFS.
Yeah, that's very cool.
All right, so we have that. Let's build a little bit on what Max had asked now. If there's, I have this great source repository. I want to be able to kind of track who's doing what and where. So let's come back to Barney. I'm going to reload this project. So let's close this. Let's see if I open this up. Let's get latest, right? So let's take this project, right click on choose get latest. All right, we'll notice that'll be gone. It should get the new function call. All right, so there's my function call. And now I want to add another function call, but this time I don't have time to do it right now. Actually, let's turn this around. I'm sorry to bounce around a little bit. I want to make sure that we have two users that check something in. I'm logged in as Fred. I'm getting ready to go on vacation, right? So I want Barney to do some work, all right? So I'm going to come to the team menu. I'm going to go to new work item, and I'm going to choose feature. I'm going to tell Barney, hey, I want you to create a new feature. Oops. I'll choose the feature. I'll fill it out. Implement or give it some details of what I'm going to do. Obviously, it's nonsense, so I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time filling this out. All right, but you can do all sorts of good stuff. You can put, what the implementation should look like, any links to some documentation you have, whatever. And I'm going to assign it to Barney. So it'd be B. All right. The state's new. The reason is new. Priority is make this high priority. All right. You kind of get the idea. All right. So I had mentioned when you create a new template or created a new project, I changed the project template type from Scrum to Agile, and I said generally it's not going to matter which one you choose. Which template you do pick, though, does change some of these features or some of these options. So in the Agile nomenclature, we call undocumented features bugs, okay? In the Scrum nomenclature, this would be called a defect. All right. So if I came to the new work item, this wouldn't say bug; it's a defect. All right. So it's that kind of those kind of process things that are different across the templates. But at the end of the day, they all generally work the same way. That's why I said I chose Agile, because I'm used to calling features bug, issues, user stories. All right. It's a terminology I'm familiar with. This is the only reason why I chose it. All right. So what does that do for me? All right. So let's go ahead and close this feature. I'm Barney. Let's go back over to my Visual Studio. I'm going to go over to Team Explorer, and I'm going to expand my work items. Okay. I'll expand my queries, and I'm going to double-click my task and see, oh, hey, well, isn't that awesome? I have no... All right, let's try this again. This is why you don't do demos live. Or you do it in front of a small crew who does not care. Let's do a bug. I know that worked earlier. All right, so let's go to team, new work item, bug. Function bug. Again, I'll assign it to Barney. And we'll save this. Now I'll come back over to Barney. Let's go to my bugs. All right, and there's the bug. All right, I don't know why the task didn't work. I apologize for that. All right, so this is my work item. All right, this is how I check to see. This is how we validate who does what. Right. So if I want to get that bug fixed, I create a new bug for Barney. I assign it to Barney, and Barney goes and looks at his work and says, oh, all right, I have to go fix this bug now. So we'll come back over to my work. I'll open up script, and I'll just put in here whatever. Fix some bug, right? Doesn't matter what it is. I'm going to check this in now. We'll save it. Now, I'm going to go, let's see, fix bug. I'm going to go to work item, and I'm going to associate this. Where are my bugs? To bug 12. It's the bug that just assigned to me, right? So I just pulled down this drop down and found my bugs. I'm going to associate it to this bug, and I'll set it to resolve. And that's how we have that audit trail. So I know that work was signed to Barney. Barney fixed the bug, and then he checked it in and associated it back to that same bug. So we'll check it in, and we're good to go. All right. And last thing Max had asked me about is, let's go back here. The history. So I'll look at view history. Now here's the catch though. All right, I'm going to do this again, but I need to log in as an administrator. So let me log in as Barney is not an administrator, and this is not what I want to show you. So let's do this. It's not live.com, is it? I guess it is. Wrong password, that's the problem. The red message even told me that. All right, so let me connect to these. All right, so again, I have the same problem, right? It's grayed out. Here's project echo because it's not mapped, so let's map this to something. Let's go ahead and get the project. Let's open this up. So right click, view history. All right, and here's all the things that I've checked in. All right, all the different change sets. So every time I check in a file, the change set increments. And then what the comment was. This is why adding comments is vital. So I go look at this. I know. All right, here, Barney checked this in to fix the bug, and Fred checked this in to add to get some service info. All right, I can right click. I can view it. I can get the version, right? So I can go look at the file. It's going to open up here in a second. Did it open up here? Probably did. Yeah, here it is. All right. So I can go and I can figure out who did what. Right. This is my audit trail. All right. So that's really helpful. All right. And again, because every time I check these things in successfully, in theory, I'm setting them to that file. I don't know why it wasn't. Let me go check that extension manager is still there. It is. All right. It should have been saving these, again, digitally signed to this directory. I really honestly don't know where it is, which is really bothering me. It's going to blow up the rest of my demo. All right.
Check under the properties of your solution. It might show where it's stored.
It won't. It's the I know where it's stored locally.
Yeah. Right? Oh, okay.
It's the check-in policy. It's is just source code writing to this server. So and it's not failing. So there's something going on. I'll figure it out later. I realize it's not going to really mess me up.
I got you.
You'll just have to trust me that it generally is. There's generally been work. Like I said, the demo guys were just not going to be nice to me. Every time I've done this in the last couple of days, it's been blowing up on me. You can see I've been messing around with this a lot over the last couple of months. But every time I save it successfully, these numbers are the change set, right? So if I find a change set here, right, I say, oh, change set 132, I can go back to this directory and find change set 132 on disk, or I can just pull out a source control, right? The key here is if it checks in fine, we create it, we put it out in this public share so anybody can come get this. So, this could be an AD script. I can come out here and get this and run it. All right, and then I know it's from a trusted source and is digitally signed. All right. The last thing I'll show you in relationship to then this check-in policy. All right, I told you, or I had mentioned on this slide, and again, it was a while ago. I'm not sure. I don't expect you to remember this, but there's two things we were trying to accomplish. All right, security was the first, was one of them. I want to make sure I know where these scripts come from, and they're digitally signed. All right, and I'll show you why that's important in a minute. The second thing I told you I wanted to accomplish is I wanted to facilitate some coding best practices. I want to make sure that the code that's being published is meeting some corporate standard that somebody has decided, right? And if that somebody is whatever, it's wide open. I'm going to talk you through some of them that my team we have come up with and we implement in our code, and then show you kind of how that works. So I am I'm a little bit of a particular when it comes to coding PowerShell or any language. All right, I like pretty code. All right, one of the things I really love about PowerShell is the fact that it's consistent. All right, so if I'm going to write PowerShell code, I want to make sure it adheres to PowerShell's consistent theme. All right, so what do I mean by that? Well, PowerShell, one of its consistency things is commandlets or commands are always in a form of a verb and dash singular noun. Okay, right? Everybody knows that. If I'm going to call a commandlet, it's get dash process and not something else, right? It's a verb dash singular noun. So that's how I want to write my functions. All right, I want to write them in a verb dash singular noun because that's how people are used to writing PowerShell. So, but if I'm a messy coder, all right, so I'm gonna take out the get and I'm just gonna call it service info. I like to be very verbose when I'm writing PowerShell code. All right, if I'm sitting at the console and I'm writing some PowerShell for myself, I want to be as efficient as possible because I want to get my job done. If I'm writing PowerShell code that I'm going to share with somebody, I want to be as verbose as possible because I want that somebody else to be able to open it up and read it and know exactly what my intentions are, and I want the code to be maintainable. Somebody comes behind me in 6 months from now and reads this code, I want them to understand what they're doing or what my intentions were. All right, so I don't like this. I don't write my code. I don't use positional parameters. We call this a positional parameter. Right? I'm passing bits as a parameter, but I'm not putting the parameter name in front of it. All right? So it means when I call get service, whatever's in position 1 is assumed to be associated to the dash name parameter. All right? I know that because I write a lot of PowerShell. If somebody comes behind me 3 months from now and doesn't write a lot of PowerShell and they look at this, they might not be inherently clear what I'm trying to do. Does that kind of make sense? I don't like aliases. If I'm going to write PowerShell code, I'm not going to do, say, okay, CD /temp. CD is an alias. Right? If you're not aware of that, CD is an alias to set location. Right? I don't like putting aliases in my scripts. And then the last thing, I'll put one more thing in here. $bits. I'll put a variable in here to capture my service call. All right. I don't like using variables without them being declared. All right, this is an assignment. This isn't a declaration. All right, and I'll fix all this in a minute. So here I have this code. All right, it doesn't adhere to my, and I'm pointing at me. I know you can't see that. It doesn't adhere to my particular best practices for PowerShell. This is not good, clean code. Okay, whatever. I write this code. I'm going to go check this in. All right, I'm going to save this, say yes. All right, so we'll say checking in bad code. I'm going to click check in. Hey, I have some conflicts. Let me go fix this. All right, hang on. I have some conflict management I need to take care of. Let's go to the merge tool. I forgot I added this fix some bug. So we're just going to go next change. We're going to keep all this. And yeah, we're good. Come on, let's go. What is it still missing? There we go. All right. So let's reload that. There's my flag I added earlier. So again, nice. I didn't lose Barney, didn't lose any work. All right. I saved it. Now I'm going to go check it in again. All right. Again, checking in my bag code. Click check in. And this did not work. So the fact that, sorry guys, we're gonna do something real quick. The fact that we're not saving out to let's uninstall this. We're not saving out to directory, and the fact that now it didn't save, it didn't throw an error, tells me that module is not working. So we're going to try this again. All right, so let's close that. And then let's, oh, all right, so let's put a space in there so it checks it out. Let's check it in. Yeah, I'm at a loss, and this is going to be really unfortunate because this worked about an hour and a half ago. So what changed? All right, let's do this. Let's go try it from Barney. All right, so it's not installed here either, so let's go and install this. Let's get the latest. Close this, close this. All right, so here's our file. Let's get that out. All right, I'm at a loss, which really stinks. We're going to try this one more time.
Did you close Visual Studio after adding the add-in?
I did, yeah, thanks. All right, there we go. I don't know why the other two didn't work. All right, this is now from my Windows 2008 R2 server, which is, again, is really bizarre because I was doing this all afternoon and it worked an hour ago. All right, so I get this message. It says, hey, oh, it's trying to do conflict resolution, so it didn't work. Let's try this one more time. Here, yes. Yes. All right, so now I can't do it because it has locks on it. So let's figure out what's going on here. So we have no lock there. Let's close that. I don't see a lock on here either. Close that. Well, that is interesting. All right, so Max, we may have to come back and do this part of the demo, and we'll re-record it. I have to figure out what's going on. There's something has gone wrong. So I'm going to explain to you what this should have done, and and hope you can appreciate the what would have occurred. And I'm really kind of bummed that this did not work.
No, I have my series of experience with Team Foundation.
Yeah,
you know. Level.
What really bums me out is, like I said, I practiced this a lot today, knowing I was going to do this today, and this worked an hour ago. Before I went to sit down for dinner, this worked. So something has gone wrong. I've done something to mucky this up. That being said, all right, one of the other things that this check-in module is doing is, I'll call it this patterns and practices compliancy check. All right. So what it's doing is it's parsing this code, and it's checking for some patterns, for some best practices. I had kind of outlined for you what we were going to check. All right. A function name that isn't adhering to the verb-noun syntax. All right. The check-in process would have stopped. It would have failed, and told me it did not. The check-in did not meet some compliancy metrics. All right. And it would have outlined for me what they were, and the fact that this was not a verb-noun. It would have told me what line it was on, and would have given me a blurb about the code that I was looking at. Okay. Actually, this should have been without this name parameter. So it should have barked at me that said, "Hey, I'm calling a commandlet with a verb without a positionally, with a parameter that's positional and not named." So it would have stopped my check-in process and said, "Hey, you need to fix this code, all right, the alias here. You need to clean this code up before I can check it in." Now, we can still override that, all right? Because let's say I'm going on vacation and I don't have time, or my boss says, "Hey, you've got this priority 1 bug I need you to fix now." I don't have time to go through and clean up this code, right? The boss said now, he meant now. But I don't want to lose my work. So I can override the check-in. There's just a little checkbox that override. Give it a reason. Hey, got to go work on P1 bug. We'll fix it later. And I can check that code in so I can save it. I don't want to lose it. What doesn't happen, though, is because that code is not of sufficient quality, I'll still check it in, but I won't digitally sign it and go drop it on that network share. So it's not available for public consumption, but I still want to save it so I can come back and do something with it later. Does that kind of make sense? So that was kind of what we should have seen. And again, I apologize for this. Well, I'll come back and I'll have to demo this again and record it. So it allows me to only check in and publish known good code, and that's the key, is the good part, right? I want to make sure that I clean this up before I make it consumable by the public. Sound good?
Yeah, that sounds good.
Yeah. All right. So I don't know how I'm doing on time. I got a couple more minutes?
Yeah, you're good.
All right. So since I couldn't demo the code practice check, I figure maybe I'll at least come back here and, oh, did I close another one? Let's do this. I'll at least show you how that check-in policy is doing that code vetting, if anybody's interested.
Yeah, go ahead.
So let's do this. Let's do, let's go to, I need to connect to a different project in Team Foundation system. Let's come back here. PowerShell Analyzer. Let's open this up. All right. So in PowerShell 3, we introduced a PowerShell parser. All right. So at the end of the day, all I'm doing is parsing this PowerShell script and looking for language constructs. Now, if PowerShell didn't have a parser, it would be up to me. Somebody could somebody's got an open mic. Greg, can you mute your mic? All right. Sorry, there's a lot of background noise. So if PowerShell didn't have a parser, it would be on me to parse the script and figure out where all the language syntax, all the constructs are, figure out where the functions are, figure out what the function name is, figure out if something is an alias or not, and figure out whether that command is part of figure out if that string is a command or part of something else. It would be a tremendous amount of work to break a script down into these language structures to kind of figure that out. The PowerShell parser does all the heavy lifting for me. All I have to do is apply some logic based on what it finds, or based on those language constructs. So that's what I'm going to demo. I'm going to just go ahead and do this in a debugger. Just kind of walk you through it. So I have this this PowerShell analyzer. Let me see if I still have my breakpoint set. So this is I do. This is a GUI version of that same patterns and practices checker I put into the Visual Studio check-in module. All right. This is actually where I got the idea. I wrote this patterns and practices GUI to do code review for us. We were doing code review for customers. We were code reviewing 200 scripts, and it didn't make sense to go through 200 scripts manually. We needed a tool to go through it. So I wrote the tool to do the vetting for me, at least the easy stuff, right? The stuff that I know we could check, and then from there we can go through and look at the code more meticulously and give guidance based on that. But we wanted an automated way to do it, to get the low-hanging fruit, so to speak. So I kind of took that idea and just put it in that Visual Studio check-in module. So I'm going to go ahead and run this. So you see the little GUI just asked me, what file do I want to look at? So let's go ahead and just grab a file. Here, this is the file I've been working on earlier. It's this file right here, right? So it's in Notepad. So you can see there's, kind of what I was talking about. There's there's nothing really inherently wrong with this script, but I wanted to show you that how I break this stuff down. So how do I figure out what the function name is without trying to figure out, all right, I'm going to parse just a text file and look for the word function, and then I have to find out where the function ends. So I look at the opening script block, and then I got to find a closing script block, but the closing script block could have been this one. All right, so now I got to count pairs, right? I got to make sure I have the right pair sequence, and I got to find this guy. It's a tremendous amount of work. And just trust me, finding this stuff is really time consuming. The parser just makes this whole lot nicer and easier. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to parse this. All right. So I'm not going to walk you through all the minutia of the solution here. But at the end of the day, basically what we're doing is we're using the parser to break apart this file into what we call the AST, which stands for Abstract Syntax Tree. It breaks it into a syntax tree, a hierarchy of tokens, and how they're related to one another as far as the language goes. All right, so I've broken it up. I have this AST file, and you notice I put my mouse over it. I can see the contents of the AST file, and at the end of the day, take my word for it, but all this junk in here is the entire script. All right, so it's the contents of the entire script. So once I have this AST file, I'm going to call its visit method, and this visit method, there's quite a few of them, right? It's all these down here at the bottom of the gray. These are all different methods. All right. These are visit methods based on what the object token or the language syntax token is as it goes through each one of them. So if I just go ahead and walk into this, the first thing I do is I hit this script block AST. The script block AST is really the entire script. All right. So again, I'll hold my mouse over it. You'll see the contents. It's the entire script, which really doesn't do me a whole lot. All right, this doesn't give me anything more than I would just looking at the script. All right, but I have to, like I said, it's a hierarchy, so we have to start somewhere. This is the root. All right, this is where everything begins. So stands to reason I probably am not going to do much inside of this method. I'm not going to do any work. I don't care about the whole thing. I want to know particulars. So we'll go on to the next language block. We're going to hit the name block. The only difference between the name block and the syntax blocks is the name block has it strips away the comments. All right, so I'm getting a little closer to Utopia now. Now I have the script code minus the comments. So I'm getting a little closer to having something that's useful. All right, again, I hold my mouse over here. I can see some of the statements in here. What they are, etc. So I can start pulling this apart a little bit, but still probably more information than I need. So let's go on. Let's see where it goes next. So this one goes down to the function definition. This one looks promising. All right. This was actually pulled the function out of that script, so I don't have to go find it. It pulled it out for me. So I can go look at the function. I can look at its body. Let's see, let's go, I'll tell you what, let's do this. Let's go up here. Let's go to the base, go to the extent, go look at the text. All right, so this is the entire function, right? So now it pulled out me just a function, which is nice. I don't have to go find the opening, closing block. I don't have to find out where the function is. It told me. The other nice thing is I can come in here and look at the function definition. And I said I want to pull, my goal was I want to make sure the function adheres to a naming syntax. Well, here's the name. It tells me the name of it is get some important information. I could have looked at that code in this block and said, hey, if the name is not hyphenated, it's not in verb dash form. And I could also take in whatever's to the left of the hyphen and look to see if it was one of the well-known verbs, right? I can execute the command like get verb and see if the whatever's on the left-hand side of that hyphen match one of those verbs. So I can tell you either if it's using a well-known verb in this verb dash name or if it's not using it at all. So this is kind of how we can break this script down and check for some patterns and practices, check for some best practices. And that's really the nut of what I was trying to accomplish when I wrote this. Does that kind of make sense? Does that seem pretty neat?
Oh, yeah.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Oh, very interesting.
All right. So I've never presented this in its entirety in front of folks. I know I've chewed about an hour and a half already. I really didn't talk about much of the details. Like I said, the devil's in the details. I'm going to talk really quickly. I'm going to move on from this. I'm going to just talk really quickly, kind of how I implemented some of the security around this, and then I'll call it a day and open it up to questions. The first thing I want to talk about, which I think is important, is the execution policy, right? I said I want to make sure that all my scripts that I execute on my production servers are digitally signed. I don't want to run something that somebody I don't know or I can't track wrote and execute on my servers. All right, so if I'm on my Windows 2008 server, all right, if I just execute get execution policy, it in fact says it's all signed. How would I change my execution policy? All right, so I could do set execution policy. I want to change it to remote sign. So I wrote this malicious script. I want to change it to remote signed so I can execute my script. All right, but if you hit it, you'll notice I'm going to get a message that says I can't because my execution policy was set via a GPO. All right, so if you're not aware of this, we can set execution policy via GPO. That can't be bypassed by simply calling set execution policy. The other way we talk to people about doing this is from the command line, right? So if PowerShell .exe pass the dash execution policy bypass. All right, I'm going to put the no exit in so the stupid thing doesn't close on me. All right, but it runs, right? I don't get an error. But if I do get execution policy, fix my fingers, it's still all signed. I can't change it. The only way to change it is via GPO. All right, so this is how I want my production server set because I don't want anybody bypassing the work that I'm doing. All right, and I did that simply through a GPO. All right, I created an OU called production servers. I put all my production servers in there, and I assigned it this GPO. I call it set server execution policy. If I edit this, it's in computer configuration preferences. Windows settings, I don't think that's right. Let's do policies, administrative templates, Windows components. And it's down here in Windows PowerShell. And I turn on script execution. And I set it to only allow signed scripts.
Nice.
Yeah, so I can go and I can enforce that all my servers are going to adhere to that GPO. All right. The other thing I had to do is I have to push that certificate. I have to publish a code signer certificate so I can sign my scripts. So I'm going to open up the certificate. Let's do this here first. Let's open up my certificate authority. I thought I had that saved here. open up my certificate authority. And I have Active Directory search services running on this machine. All right, so I have this certificate templates container. All right, by default, you don't have a code signing cert. All right, I added this. I simply added a right-click, new certificate template, and chose code signing. It's not here anymore because I haven't one published, but I would just choose code signing and click OK. All right, so now I have a certificate that's suitable for code signing available, but I don't want to make this available to everybody. All right, that doesn't make sense. If I make it available to my entire organization, then anybody else can sit down and install the certificate, digitally sign the script, and I'm kind of back in the same soup, right? Again, I'm trying to protect who's running code on my production servers. So the way I can manage that is with this certificate template OU or snap-in. I can find my code signing template, right-click, go to Properties, go to Security, and I just have a group called PS Developers that has access to read and enroll in this certificate, and all my PowerShell developers are in that. So at least I can narrow down only my PowerShell developers can enroll for this certificate so they can sign their certs. So I can limit. I have a smaller pool of people that have access to this, and again, I can track who signed what script and when. Okay, so that's really kind of the high-level stuff that I wanted to bring to your attention. And then with that, I'll open it up. And if any questions, comments.
So you first set the certificate, and then you go and change the policy.
So the first thing I did is I issued the certificate, right? So I opened up the the certificate authority, and I issued the code signing cert because it's not there by default.
Yeah.
After I did that, I opened up the certificate template MMC, and I set the permission so only one group or a subset of users can actually get that. So at the end of the day, what does that really do? I probably should have I could probably explain that a little better. So if I open up IE and go to HTTPS, dude. So name of my server, dat, lac, cert serve, and this is where I would go to request a certificate. Okay. So it's Active Directory search services. So I'm going to request a certificate. I want to request an advanced certificate. All right. So yes. All right. If I was not a member of the PS developers group, I won't see this. This code signing template will be hidden from me, so I won't be able to request a certificate suitable for code signing in my environment.
Very cool.
Bill, if you want, you can make another presentation and talk a little more on this side, and then you can integrate at the end your solution again.
Yeah, I'd be happy to do a part 2. Again, I really wish that that code check worked, because I don't want to pat myself on the back, but it's really cool because it just saves you so much time, and you can validate the quality of the code that's getting checked in. And you'd be surprised at how much stuff you can eliminate bug-wise and unwanted code by just vetting and make sure the stuff that's coming in is of decent quality.
I'm with you on that. So whatever you want, just let me know.
Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna get my stuff working. And then, if you don't mind working with me over the next couple of days, I'm gonna work on it tomorrow because it's gonna drive me nuts. If I can present again, even if it's in the middle of the day, and record it, to get that.
It's fine. Don't worry. Go ahead. Do what you need to do. Just let me know when you're ready, and we'll set it up. Doesn't matter if out of our schedule. We just put it out there so people can sign in.
Yeah, I'm home this week, just so it doesn't sound like I'm being too singularly focused, but I travel almost every week, and I'm home this week. So if I don't do it this week, I don't know when I'm going to get back to it.
I gotcha.
And if it doesn't fit in your schedule, I'll figure out a way to record it, and I'll send it to you.
No, it's fine. It's fine, man.
Okay.
It's
All
fine.
Right. Yeah, but this solution, the devil really is in the details. Setting up all this infrastructure is key to get this to work.
Yeah, this is Greg. I'd be very interested in seeing this as well.
Okay.
By the way.
And then we're talking just to tie up another kind of a loose end. I don't know if anybody's aware of this. Again, I don't want to make assumptions. If I have a signed script, so let's come out to like the itinerary public. No, what the hell? Yeah, it was public. PowerShell drops. Let's see. I'm trying to remember the name of the directory. PowerShell. Oh, I really did this the hard way, and I don't know why. All right, so I have this script, right? Script.ps1. If I go ahead and execute this, yeah, I want to run it. Oh, so it failed because I was expecting it to take or it's looking for a service called bits, or it's looking for a processing of bits. Obviously, I did something wrong. But the point being, the script actually ran. It's just my code is probably bad. Yeah, I typed get process name bits instead of get service. So if I open up this this file, like this is actually a good example. All right, I've obviously made a mistake. I want to go fix this. So if we open up this thing, let's go to public PowerShell drops PowerShell. Where the hell did I go? Demos PS Project 1. PS Project 1 latest. All right, so let's go ahead and edit this. All right, so yeah, so I got to get process name bits. I messed this up, so let's fix this. All right, so let's just get process. Let's get process. Let's do them all. All right. So I'll go ahead and save that off. Let's close that. Let's come back here and fix. Let's go ahead and run that again. Okay. And you'll notice it says I can't now. I won't run, all right, because the contents of the file have changed. Right, so the hash that's signed at the bottom of that script doesn't match now with the contents of the script. All right, so I don't know if anybody's aware of that, but this is what digitally signing scripts does for us. This way, people can't come back and modify the scripts after they've been dropped in the share. The only way they can run them is they got to leave them exactly the way they are, or they don't run.
Oh, that is good.
All right, so this is the part of the security thing. I want to make sure I know exactly what's running on my machines. So yeah, we can talk about it. We can do this again, and we can talk about all this kind of stuff. It'd be yeah, I didn't realize how much time walking through the solution was going to chew up.
No, but it's good. It lead to these.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, like I said, I'm my TFS administrator for my team internally at Microsoft. We write a lot of PowerShell, and I control this, and this is why I have the solutions. I want to make sure these guys are checking in code that we're not going to have to come back and fix again later, and I want to make sure my customers are running scripts that we know are trusted and all this good stuff. So.
Okay, sounds good.
Any other comments or questions?
Well, I do have some questions.
Cool. Hopefully I have some answers.
Coming from an IT admin background, not a developer background, we traditionally used Tortoise CSV or CVS, whatever the way it goes. I always get it backwards, for code check-in and check-out. And what you showed us here seems a little bit of an overkill for a small shop. Do you have any? What? It just seems overkill to me.
All right. So I had mentioned earlier that I said I'm going to show you a developer solution to a developer problem.
Got it. Okay.
And then, well, hang on. And I did say we would come back and talk about it. All right. Because to be fair, this solution is hacky. All right. It's hacky because Visual Studio was never intended to be a PowerShell editor.
Mm-hmm.
And so that being said, that's why I think it feels that. And again, we got the stuff that I showed you in TFS as far as assigning bugs and work items and stuff. A small shop or not, I work with a team of 7 guys, and we use bugs and work items. All right. So in that respect, it's not overkill, but the solution, I would agree, it has more bells and whistles than you need. So, and I am not arguing that at all.
Okay.
All right. So, and to that point, myself and a colleague of mine are rewriting the solution to work in the PowerShell ISE. So you'll be able to do everything I just showed you within the PowerShell ISE. So you'll still connect to TFS Azure, right, and you'll still have all its potential. Right? I'm not going to dumb it down, but whether or not we expose it all is going to be an entirely different story. Because I am with you that and I mentioned this earlier, PowerShell was designed for the system administrator, so I want to make a system administrator focused tool. This is not. This is a developer focused tool because this is what we have at the moment, and the need is still there. You still should be, or you still potentially could need to do source control.
Oh, the need is absolutely there.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And this is the date that brung me. Okay, all right. This is what I have. This is what I have to work with. We're gonna fix it. I hope to in the next couple of months have a PowerShell ISE based solution that you'll be able to do all this from the ISE and not have to worry about all the guts and the overhead that this carries with it.
Okay. Now, will you be able to do branching and so forth?
Wow, I didn't even touch on that. I was afraid to. See, this comes from the guy who just told me what I showed him was overkill.
Well,
so it's overkill, but give me more. I like that.
Right.
Yes, yeah. This solution as it stands now, you can still do branch, merge, forward integration, reverse integration, because that's all functionality within TFS.
Okay.
No, that is very true. Even the previous version allow you to do a lot. It's very powerful, and it's just a matter. You need to understand what's happening because you can easily get lost.
Yeah, you definitely need to understand what's going on, but I can tell you it's absolutely paramount. So if you'll indulge me for a moment, I'll tell you how we use branching for what we do. And then you could probably find a way that it would relate to how you write scripts in your environment. But we write, and again, when I say we, I'm collectively talking about the automation team that I work on here at Microsoft.
Okay.
We write or help customers write scripts for themselves. It's generally in a oh my God, something bad has happened in my environment and I need a solution yesterday. And not so much a long-term relationship, right? So it's usually an emergency-based situation. So we tend to reuse a lot of our code, and that's the only way we'd be able to be so reactive, right? So we have a really big library of code that we've written over the last couple of years, and we just keep re-leveraging that IP. So every time we write a solution, let's say I have a document searching solution that we wrote for customer X. Well, customer Y comes back and says they need a document searching-esque type solution that does something similar but a little different. Mm-hmm. I make a branch off the main. I don't want to rewrite all that code, but it's going to be vastly different. It's going to be version whatever. So we branch off of that, and this way, if we find bugs in the main code, I can integrate it back into this branch that I wrote, or vice versa. I find something I do better. I can reverse integrate it back into main. So that's kind of how we use it, but. That was a long-winded yes. We're absolutely going to support it. I'm excited you brought it up. I guess is why I keep talking about it.
That's cool. Any idea on an ETA?
Yeah, I like the fact about the signing at the end of the integration is necessary.
Yeah, being able to secure was really, I think, the driving motivator for me to work on this solution. Because that's the chief conversation when I go talk to customers is, we got all this stuff, and it's great that we have all these little pockets of people developing stuff, and that's not as big a concern for them from an executive, an administrative level. All right, they want to know who's running the code, and that's where the security comes in, right? They don't care that they have 30 people working on the same code. All right, those inefficiencies don't bother them. They have 30 people that's writing PowerShell code that potentially could be all running on production servers, and that's what bugs them. Yeah, which is a reasonable concern. So I don't have an ETA.
Okay,
I'd love to be
I
able to give you
have
one.
to ask. You know,
Go ahead.
that's all.
Um,
Oh,
so I would like to do it sooner rather than later. Mostly because this solution really excites me. Again, I use it, so I know if I'm using it, there's somebody else out there that can use it. And again, not to hurt myself, pat myself on the back, but every time I show this, everybody seems pretty excited. So I don't think I'm going up the wrong path. I think this is probably something very useful.
yeah, I'd say you're definitely not alone on this.
Yeah, I don't. All right, I don't think so, and that's because all the customers I talk to, this is the conversation we always have, and that's again why this is, the necessity is a mother of invention, right? I had customers that needed this, so we wrote it. I'd like to tell you it's going to be a couple of months. I really don't know all the challenges that are going to be involved integrating this into the ISE.
Right. Okay.
So it won't be until I sit down and I really start to flush out the architecture and I figure out what the challenges are ahead of me. Will I be able to give you an answer? It's a nice segue though, because I have to ask a question. Max, when people register, do you have contact information for everybody that's here today?
No.
Okay. So here's the other detail we'll have to discuss regarding what I showed you today. I put up the slide earlier of the dependencies. I'll put it up again if anybody wants to see it. But the Visual Studio, the Power GUI plugin for Visual Studio that you can get off of CodePlex, and CodePlex is a open source community-driven development site. The check-in policy, the patterns and practices compliancy check that I wrote, I have not published on CodePlex yet. I had every intention of uploading it last week, and I work in a very large organization with a lot of lawyers, and they'd asked me not to do it. So the question is going to be around when can I make the code available and where is it going to be? I'll be honest with you, the question is really less about if it's going to be available. I know we're going to make it available.
Yeah, gotcha.
The question is going to be in what form. There is some concerns about putting it on CodePlex because it's open source, which means anybody can contribute to the project. I'm not opposed to community-driven development efforts. I have stuff on CodePlex. I'm already doing it. There is some concern about Microsoft and PFE in particular, so the organization I work in, our involvement with it because they're really interested in driving it.
Yeah, they might make you liable because of you develop it or something.
Well, no, it's not. It's not from a liability point of view because if I put it out in open source, I'm protected from libel. It's in the agreement. I'm not liable for the code. It's your job to vet the code. The concern or the issue, I won't call it a concern, there's more of a desire internally by Microsoft to help me drive this. So they want to invest Microsoft time and assets to develop this. And if they do that, then they don't want it open source. They want to keep it internally. And that's the conversation right now. So it's good for me, right? It's good for me because it sounds crappy, but it's good visual. It's good visibility for me. It's good for my career because if we have people inside of Microsoft that want to develop this and they don't want me to put it out, but it's a little bit of a limbo right now. So I don't know when it's going to be. And if they do publish it, it'll be up on Code Gallery, right? So it'll still be publicly available. You just won't be able to get the source code and develop on it yourself.
Well, this is very interesting. The thing you're showing in here. Already have one of our colleagues doing a community work for the PowerShell desired state of, the PowerShell 4.
Okay.
On that this desired configuration state, and he's building a solution using AST in order to, best practices of building it. So,
okay.
And you're showing this, like, oh, that's probably the same thing he's probably doing.
Yeah, we're doing probably something very similar. I actually do a lot of development with the AST. I actually wrote a PowerShell profiler using the AST.
Exactly. That's he mentioned
so
about that.
can-
I mean, that was just interesting because they were talking. I mean, we do have a lot of MVPs that are very savvy diving into
Yeah,
.NET.
MVPs.
You know?
Yeah, you're no joke. If you earn an MVP status, it's no joke. Generally, guys are pretty sharp.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not even close to that, but I'm diving my head in it, and it's, for so many years I just deal about the language, as administrator, understand what to do with it. Now we're getting to the .NET side, it makes it more powerful,
Yeah. Oh yeah. With .NET, you're limited by your imagination almost, which is a pretty nice place to be in when you're talking about automating your IT infrastructure.
Yeah.
And again, I have to take off my developer hat when I'm thinking about this stuff because, we're talking about system administrators getting their hands on this, and they definitely bring a different slant and a different perspective to the kind of work they do, and then ergo the type of things they need from us as a community.
Nice.
I will have a question, Bill.
Okay.
Bill, in this code control that you have, that you show us, eventually you're going to reach a moment that says, okay, let's freeze this release, and this becomes like the release version.
Yep.
Okay. Given so far you have talked that this is more like a consumption for your team. What happened when you develop, a PowerShell script, really for consumption of a group of users that need some kind of information, and that has also a second part is because I'm looking at okay, I guess that this can be used for modules too. Do you have any comment on that?
Yeah, if I'm understanding your question correctly, I think it's the conversation that I believe it was Greg and I were having around branching. So if I have a script, and I think you're talking, and just to make sure I understand the question, we're talking generality and not really specifically my solution. But if I am a system administrator and I am writing a script for me or my team, and to do X, it doesn't matter what it is, and we've decided we're code complete, we're done, we're happy with where this is. But at some point in the future, I have somebody comes to me and says, hey, I'd like to take your solution, but I need it to now be more applicable to my team over here. How would I handle that? Am I understanding the question correctly?
Yeah, close enough.
Right.
Basically, you may release the code so other organizations.
So this is exactly the conversation that Greg and I were having, and it's I would develop the solution. We'll call it version 1.0. All right, and again, it doesn't matter what it does or why it's code complete, but it's done, it's baked, and I'm happy with it. But then at some point, I decide I want to develop version 2. I would create a branch off of version 1 because I want to leverage the work I did in version 1. I'm probably going to inherit most of the code base in version 1 and just add stuff to it. So I'll branch off, and that will become the version 2.0 branch. And then all future development will be off of that branch. I'll leave branch 1 alone. The only time I'll go back to branch 1, we'll call it main, is to do bug fixes that I find in that branch. But any other work then will be done in the version 2.0 branch. And then I'll get to the point where that's code complete, and I'll say, okay, we're done. And then maybe at some point later I'll have a version 3, and I'll branch off of version 2.
I see.
And that's how I would. But given the scenario you've given me, and all right, this is a hypothetical conversation, that's probably how I'd handle it. The problem with branching and merging and all this stuff is it really comes down to, it's very situational. Generally a lot of discussion goes into around a branching strategy, because it can get pretty out of control. So you have to make sure you have a strategy in mind, and you stick with it, because it's really hard to back off or change it midstream. Not impossible, it's just a lot of pain. It's a lot of wasted effort. So hopefully that answered your question.
Yeah, very good. Basically, also I would like to hear a little bit of comment. It's not a big deal, but as you were working on this, showing the version control, I said, what about instead of a PS1 script, what about when we're talking modules and things like that? Mostly like, I don't know how to describe it in better terms. Maybe I'm thinking too far. Um, you keep the different modules as different, their own version. So when you have a script, let's say a PowerShell script, the one that is going to be used is the one that knows where to go and pull the modules that it needs to
Yeah.
load.
So all right. So again, if I think I'm following the question right, and I don't know if I'm going to answer it perfectly, but I think I'll get close. I'll come back to my project X, and we'll just kind of bring this guy up. Let's do it from Barney, so it's a little prettier. So I showed you just adding PS1 files
Yep.
to this, but you can add PSM1 files. And matter of fact, this one doesn't work either. That's awesome. Yeah, there's something really going wrong here. So if I right-click, I can add a new item. So I can create whatever script PS. We'll call it. Some module by PSM1 and add that, and this guy knows what this is, right? Because at the end of the day, it's really just a PS1. It's just a PowerShell script. So I can add my module information here. I probably would go so far as say, hey, add new folder. All right. It's called the modules folder. So I'll put my modules. Oh no, this tells me it's not going to let me move it. Now. Ideally, it would let me move this. I put them. We can delete this and add it back, but I can put my modules in here. All right, in this folder. All right, so I can add. Oh, you know what? It's not. Yeah, there we go. Add new item, or I can add an existing item. So I can grab. Maybe I have a script I'm already working on. Right, I can go grab some script that I've already working on and add it to that module. So I can kind of keep it all. We want to keep it all within the project. It's perfectly acceptable and probably a good idea.
Well, here's the thing, Bill. What happened? You have the script one, and the script one is going to use the module that you have there.
Okay.
But and that's for the marketing department, for example.
Sure.
Okay. Somehow they want to know something that is not a database. It's more like an engine-oriented, kind of administrative things. Now you create a second script, the script 2, and it's more for the engineering team. Okay. But it's going to also use the same modules. Okay. It's going to be shared.
Okay.
So you have like 3 developments at once. Okay, one is for script 1, another for script 2, and another is for the module that is going to be shared between the two. I don't want to make it complicated, but I was saying this. Okay, I guess you can have different version controls for your different elements.
Okay, so in that scenario that you painted me, I don't think I would do it this way. I think I would create a project just for the module.
Correct.
And then the scripts would have their own projects. I'd break them out,
yeah,
and keep the module as one project. If it's going to be leveraged by multiple different scripts, I would rather have it its own project and just reference it.
Yeah. Okay, so now my final question, Bill, on that. My guess, I take that if I create the script 1, and it's in that repository, and when you run it and you're going to load a module, you can specify where the module is and can be reached in the repository. It's in another project. I mean, it's another section, but I guess that it can go and pull it out, correct?
No. So if you're going to reference it, now keep in mind, right, all this stuff that I'm looking at is local disk.
Okay.
All right. So no, if you're going to reference the module, you're going to reference it somewhere local on disk somewhere, not out of the repository. All right, the repository is really just to keep it there to make sure it doesn't get lost, and we audit it and we track it.
Eventually, you will release it in some place that will be a common for.
Right. That's what that file share was.
Okay.
All right. So that's when I run my check-in, I drop the files up on the Z drive, right, in the PowerShell directory, demos, whatever.
Okay.
Right. Here's my script.
Right. So
there. Maybe there'll be a modules directory in here that this guy is referencing.
Okay. So it will be a sharing instead of your local. Okay.
Right. So when I take the solution, let's say like I'm in the marketing department and I want the solution, and here's a folder called, I don't want to create, it's going to mess this up, but and here's a folder called modules. this script is going to represent or going to reference the script in this modules directory because it's going to know the directory it's in.
Exactly.
Right? I'm going to take the whole thing and move it. That whole thing is the solution, the script and that modules directory. And then I can go drop it in whatever local disk I want on my marketing machine and go run that and it should work. Or my marketing production server, right?
Very good.
I mean, Jose, is when you deploy the different, is the different end result than what you're working on.
Right. Yeah, you're right, Max. What happened is that initially, when Bill was describing the development environment, the versions and the sign in, sign out, at the end I was, well, sooner or later you're going to freeze. And will that go to a place of goes to a different place that is the release version and has nothing to do with the development area of, the versioning. And I think that's more or less what's happening, that once you finish all the different versions, eventually you take a copy of that and put it in the release area.
Yeah, and so in that case, in the way you're describing that to Max, that maybe underneath this demo projects folder, instead of saying latest, there'd also be a folder that says release.
Correct.
And that's where I know my code frozen solution is. So maybe it's one more tree we need under here. That's kind of the nice thing about this solution is this plugin. Eventually, I'm going to release it, and I would ideally going to be released with the source code. You'll be able to go change that source code and change that so when you do have a release, it will copy to that release folder automatically, and you don't have to worry about it.
Okay. Very good. Thank you.
You're welcome. It was a good question.
Right, then I guess.
I've
hey,
got another question.
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry.
No problem.
Being at the customer sites that you've gone to, what other source control programs have they used?
So, when we're talking about PowerShell, none. All right, I have yet to walk into a shop that's using source control for PowerShell.
Really?
Yeah, and this really is what really spawns this conversation. And I'm working with a lot of big customers. All right. The ones that or I'm assuming, I just got done telling you that I haven't found any. The customers that I do go in talk to about source control though is TFS, but I teach TFS workshops. I'm kind of in that sphere tomorrow. I'm talking to customers who are already using TFS.
Well, you're talking to developers already.
Right. I'm already kind of in that sphere. The other one that's gaining a lot of traction is Git. GitHub, if you've ever heard of it, it's an online, again, another cloud-based, I won't call it open source forum. A lot of open source code is up there, and we support Git and Visual Studio now. So.
Yeah, again, Visual Studio just seems overkill for PowerShell.
I can tell you that I have used the same you're using, Turtis SVN. I've used that. It's because it's efficient, practical, doesn't involve that complexity of TFS. But then in our big environment, corporate environment, I have used also TFS to save my PowerShell script. It's not meant to, but you can use it because it's source control.
Yeah, source control. I teach a TFS Essentials class, so I go out and I'm talking to business managers and new developers to the Microsoft platform about TFS, and even in those conversations, I hear exactly what you just said. This seems like so much to know. It's so much overkill. And it's the only thing I can speak to that is, I guess their concern is it's so complicated, right? Because overkill to me, I think they equate to complicated. There's just so much. Click this, do that. I will tell you. I can ask that you trust me and ask that I'm not trying to feed you a line, all right? You don't know me from hole in the wall. If you take a class with me. I'm pretty upfront about I'm a call the baby ugly kind of guy. I'm not one to feed you the marketing crap because it's too easy to see through. And I want you to trust me. I want you to trust me when I say something that you're gonna know that I mean it, and I'm not just trying to sell you something.
Right.
All right. That being said, learning TFS and learning the process and the flow really doesn't take that much. It's one of those things that you sit down and you struggle with for a few days, and you're really pissed about it. And then a few days later, you're doing it, and you're no longer pissed about it, and you don't realize it, because it's actually really intuitive, but there's a lot of pieces to it. And I kind of equate learning PowerShell the same way. It's just as a side. I tell my students it's a steep learning curve. You're going to feel like you just ran into the side of the mountain. You're going to have to trust me that if you start climbing the mountain, you're eventually going to get to a plateau and life is happy. And this, I think, is the same way. There's a little bit of a learning curve. There's a little bit of a changing the behavior and changing in how you work. And if you're open to it, it actually will make your life easier, and I promise. I couldn't imagine doing my job without this, and I know there's a lot to it. It really will become second nature. Again, that being said, I think for system administrators, and like we talked earlier, it's still overkill. We still want to make it. I want to make a happier interface. I want to make something that is familiar to people who write PowerShell, and that's the ISE.
Right.
But I also mentioned very specifically, I don't think I'm going to dumb it down. I don't think I'm going to take stuff away. I'm just going to hide a lot of the crud because you probably aren't going to want to use it.
Right. I guess the things that I see with like Tortoise, and I'm sorry to keep going back to that, but
it's just what you're used to. That's fine.
Yeah. It integrates with the shell, and I can see, which projects or files I have checked in and checked out and so forth right from the shell. And then I can edit them in any editor that I like, as opposed to having to use Visual Studio.
Yeah, I mean, I'm showing you a small sphere of stuff. I'm going to tell you right now, everything you've described to me, I can do in Visual Studio. Right? So you haven't told me anything that I'm limited. I can look and see what I have checked in and checked out. I can check in right from Windows Explorer.
Okay.
So if I have a file in Windows Explorer and I don't want to open Visual Studio, I can still check it in from Windows Explorer.
Oh, I was not aware of that.
There's a lot of stuff I'm not showing you.
Okay.
That's an interesting conversation, right? So let's
it is. It has a lot, but it's because it's a whole environment, so you won't go outside of it, and it just it's intimidating in the beginning, but just like you said, you pass the curve of using it over and over and over again. It makes it much easier. I learned it the hard way, but I end up learning it anyway. So
yeah, it'll be one of those things that you'll embrace once you start using it, because you'll be like, I don't know how I did this without using this tool, because everything's integrated. I had mentioned earlier that it used to be called Team Foundation Server. It's now Team Foundation System. It's a whole collection of stuff. It's the extensibility. I can take, and again, this is stuff we haven't talked about, but I can take information about how my development cycle's going, how many bugs I'm opening, who's opening them, how they're getting fixed, and port it all out to Microsoft Project with a click of a button.
Okay.
It's that integration across all our products. So Excel, I want to create a PowerPoint with all this documentation, all this information, all this bug information. I don't have to do anything special. It's a click a button and I'm done.
Got it.
The other thing we can, and just really quick before I forget, the other thing that's kind of nice about this solution is I'm with you. I don't like Visual Studio as a development engine for PowerShell, right? Because this is a hack. Right? Adam did a nice job, but it's still a hack.
Right.
I would still use the ISE. So I'll take this thing. I'll open up a file off of the disk, right? So this is, I told you, right? This is saved in some local file, right? It's cbarney.source. Right? I'll open up the ISE, go out to cbarney.source and open this file.
Right.
Let's just assume this. I don't know if this is, but let's assume it here. I'll open this file in the ISE, write it, test it, right? Because I'm going to test local. Or
do all the debugging and so forth in there.
Everything I'm doing here, when I'm done, come out to Visual Studio, open the file, and check it in.
Okay.
So I want to get away from that two-part scenario. I don't like this for my daily work. I want to be here. I love this. I want to take the work I do here and put it in here, and I'm gonna be a happy man.
Yeah, that kind of answers the next question I had was about debugging in Visual Studio for PowerShell scripts, but
no, I wouldn't do it. I do it here. So
okay.
I can run these projects here.
Yeah, the way I was using it, primal form sapiens for my scripting in it, and then I go into Visual Studio and check it in.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So if I run this, so I click this play button here, this execute. So all right. Again, this thing is all jacked up, but this would open up. It would open up a Power GUI window down over here, and it would actually run in Power GUI like externally. Right. So again, it's kind of a hacky little solution, but it's again it's what we have.
Okay, that answers my question. I appreciate that.
This is great stuff. I appreciate all the effort here, man. It's great.
Oh, thank you very much. Yeah, I appreciate it. And if we could set up some time after the summer, I'd be happy to come back and we can talk some more about this, and maybe I'll be able to update you as to where I am with V2.
Well, when you're ready, just let me know, and we'll set up something. Doesn't matter what day, I'll just throw it out there, and we'll get everybody together.
Sounds good.
Well.